All right, y'all. Yeah. It's a Saturday morning, in the new year. Thought I was gonna post up and get ready for, the new year. I mean, I got a government job soon. And so, you know, I didn't anticipate that all the drama that we've seen would take place. But then again, this is Trump's America. So I wanted to check in. I wanted to talk to y'all, see how y'all were feeling. Sometimes I feel like when we are elected officials and we're in the middle of this kind of becomes our world, and that we get lost in the sauce, or that we're so caught up in the bubble. But I can't imagine not kind of being concerned about what happened. And this reminds me of how I felt the day that I found out about him most likely exceeding his powers before, as it relates to yet another foreign nation. And this is where it becomes a problem if we allow, one constitutional violation after another, even if it's in a different realm. So whether we're talking about due process, as there are people that maybe weren't that tuned in to the fact that he was like bombing these Venezuelan boats, and allegedly it was because of fentanyl that was coming in, and no one was given an opportunity to talk about what it was that they were doing, because he was just killing them. Like, we all should have been outraged at that point, because once you allow someone like the man that is currently serving in the Oval to recede, and take away powers that exist in our strongest documents, such as the Constitution itself, then it becomes kind of this downward spiral, and it doesn't stop. And so, yeah, I just wanted to check in with y'all to see how you feel. I'm just letting y'all know that I didn't get no call like, girl, it's time to get back to DC. We got votes to take. Obviously, not obviously, for those of you who don't know, the current committees that I serve on are the Select Committee for January 6th. I also serve on Judiciary. I also serve on Oversight, as I'm sure most of y'all know. And I actually also am the current ranking member of another select committee that deals with declassification. So we deal with all of the UFOs, which we don't call them that anymore, but that's what most people know them as. So I'm saying UFOs, as well as declassification around MLK, as well as JFK and various things. But I serve as the ranking member on that. So honestly, most people don't know that I actually have like 4 committees, which is not normal for sure to have so many committee assignments. But I do stay pretty busy. So I do not serve on foreign affairs. I don't serve on armed forces. I don't serve on any of those committees. But when it comes to things like what I feel like took place, it is not committee specific only. This is a matter of Congress, which I am a member of the House. And in the chats that have been going crazy with other House members, I don't have any chats with the Republicans. So not really sure what they're talking about right now. But I can tell you that the Democrats are concerned about what's taking place. So let me just level set really quickly. Just so y'all know, my staff is looking to see what comments and questions you have so that they can send that over so that I can try to be as responsive as possible. Number one, anything that happens from here on out as it relates to Democrats, I feel confident in saying that universally, we are not taking quote unquote the side, because I absolutely imagine that the Republicans are going to be like, oh, the Democrats love dictators. And it's like, clearly we don't, because like we not vibing with you, bro. But like, that is not what it is. This is about process. This is about our Constitution. And it is about the precedent that it sets when you start to do things like this, as well as putting American lives in danger. That is what it is about. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of dictators in this world. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And frankly, I don't look at Trump as like Captain Save-A-Ho. I'm just saying, like, that's not what he does, right? So I think that he made it clear that this was not about the Venezuelan people and about doing something for them. Because mind you, he decided that like the Enemy Aliens Act needed to be enacted and actually revived from the dead because it's like a 1700 law, right? So that he could actually kick Venezuelans out. So I'm just saying, like, I don't think that this is the guy that has really cared very much about Venezuelans because he's saying it's such a terrible place. But yeah, we ain't got no space for you. And he's saying that it's so terrible that he had to go in and he had to do this, but we're going to kick people back. Actually, you're making the argument that asylum may have been something that was real that they actually needed. Like, don't mistake for 2 seconds. And he's not even going to try to. I think the Republicans will try to justify this. And so I think that the talking points that they will have will be this is about the Venezuelan people and freeing them. And this isn't normally what we do in that way. But nevertheless, he has made it clear that this is about oil. Oil, oil, oil. So for all the people that felt like they were voting for somebody that was looking out for them, I'm just saying it's the oil people. I remember the coverage of him having these oil magnets at Mar-a-Lago, you know, $1 million plate fundraiser or something like that. I remember those headlines. I do. I can't tell y'all when it was. It was before the election, but I remember that was a big part of it. And it is clear that some people definitely made out better with their investments than others. And when I say others, I mean the rest of us. Like, clearly, I didn't invest in this candidate, but at the end of the day, I actually do feel really bad for people that believed that this man was going to put them first. I do. Now, I know a con when I see one. And so I know what it is, not to mention like his history, but like for people that actually believed and to have this be what they receive is kind of wild. From the Epstein drama to the economy and tearing it apart to getting us into more wars and claiming that you're like the president of peace. So that's my 2 cents. I'm gonna get to y'all's questions because I'm sure you have more exciting things to do as it relates to this Saturday morning. All right. What are we doing? Okay. What questions do we have? Team, send me questions because I don't know what's happening. All right, let me do it this way. I can check in over here. Oh, y'all are going really fast. CBS News Channel has a reporter who interviewed some Venezuelans who are very happy and feeling relieved about Trump's actions. I don't think they truly understand what Trump is really after. America last. Okay, so somebody asked what we are going to do now. So, I mean, I do want to make it clear. Let's go ahead and go through civics really quickly. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. I mean, I've been trying to do my part across the country to keep them from controlling every lever of government, but they control it. And I shouldn't even say that they control it because basically Trump has consolidated power within the executive branch and Republicans in the House and Senate, except for a few. So let me be clear. I have not looked. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but there are certain people that I can rely on that seemingly are always like, this is who I am and this is what I'm going to do. And it don't matter what Donald Trump is up to, even though they're Republicans. One of those is Rand Paul. So I've not seen his statements, but I'd almost bet money that Rand Paul is speaking out against this. That is just my guess. As it relates to the House side, Thomas Massie came out very strongly against what's taking place, as well as Marjorie came out against the president. So, you know, we go back into the House on Tuesday. Now, whether or not we go back earlier, I don't have any control over that. I just want to be clear. Hakeem Jeffries doesn't have control over that. If we want to make sure that there is a check on this government, that check ain't coming until the midterms. I'm just saying. But what we have seen is we've seen a historic number of discharge petitions that have come live because a very select few, usually only about 4, Republicans have crossed over to support, say, what the Democrats were pushing forward with. So, do I anticipate that we may be able to glean a little bit more support from the Republican side? Maybe. I don't know if we'll get four so that we can get somewhere as it relates to at least voting on something. But then who knows what happens in the Senate? I have no ideas about what happens in the Senate. I think having obviously a senator that has decided that he's going to retire. Actually, there's multiple senators that have decided that they're going to retire. So maybe some of those Republican senators that have decided that they're going to retire can find their backbone and say enough is enough. I don't know. I mean, I think that there are people that are finding solace in the fact that no American lives were lost, but they could have been, just to put that out there. Because I mean, the fact that we are putting our service members in harm's way because of oil, because I do want to be clear, while one of the messages said something about the Venezuelan people were cheering, at the end of the day, like, Trump wasn't trying to help. Trump is actually going after the resources in that country. I mean, we've seen this play out more than once. We know kind of like what this is. And he wasn't trying to hide that that is his mission. I mean, the fact that we had a US president basically going on and on and on about oil, instead of spending, say, more time trying to solidify what he did behind his bootleg DOJ, and say, oh, no, this was just law enforcement and we were protecting, Americans from the drug lord, even though I'm letting drug lords go every other day because that's what I do. Like, I'm not even really sure why we are in this circular stance at this point. I am very concerned, though, about our service members. I'm very concerned about, if you've watched some of the statements that I've made, specifically, I remember doing a sit down with Brian Tyler Cohen. And this was as Steve Bannon and others were talking about Trump in a third term. And, basically having this philosophical conversation around if this is something that we feel like can be accomplished. And I said that I was very concerned that Trump may try to do everything that he can to make sure that we're at war so that he can then justify us not having elections because we're at war. And so the fact that this is the move that he decided to take here in January of 2026. We know what happens in 2026 is midterms time. I feel very confident that he is constantly engaging in whatever strong arm tactics he can to prevent having real adults in the room that understand and want to adhere to the Constitution reigning in his power. Now, if we had, say, a Democratic Speaker of the House, then we could potentially then go to court over some of these things. And we could be asking for the court and seeing where the Supreme Court stands on this. Don't have the highest hopes, but I do feel like, he goes so far that even the Supreme Court every once in a while has a hard time siding with him on some of the things that he's doing. But let me see if y'all got any other questions, because my team is supposed to be texting them to me. So let me see. All right, here we go with questions. Okay, there's a lot of questions. All right, here we go. Let's see. What happens if another country retaliates against the United States? We're at war. We're at war. And honestly, okay. So this presidency has allowed me to expand to the conspiracy world. And the sad part is it's because he's a conspiracy theorist that makes me believe that he could actually engage in some of these conspiracies. So this ballroom, there's been conspiracies around what he was doing with that ballroom, and it wasn't really the ballroom that he was looking for. But as he was in his press conference, he was attempting to say that the president was trying to go into a safe room. He said a safe space, I think is what he said. But he was talking about a safe room is what he reported out. I believe that he is trying to get a bunker of bunkers built right now. And it is because he knows that there will be retaliation, or at least people around him, even if they're going along with it, are educating him on the fact that retaliation may come. And I just don't think he cares about the rest of us. Like, this is at the same time that obviously we know the tax subsidies for healthcare have expired. They don't care. Like, I mean, this is at the same time that we know that the impact of the big ugly bill is about to be felt. We know, like, I just don't feel like he cares enough about us to worry about anybody retaliating. And I also am concerned about the fact that our relationships with our allies has been strained ever since he got back into office. And so this isolation stance that we have may really cause us to have some problems. Um, let's see. How can the USA support Venezuelan civil society, journalists, and political dissidents in this moment? That is a good question. I think that we all need to, it's interesting that I don't know how many Americans are really that interested at this moment in supporting Venezuelans, because they've been like attacking Venezuelans since day one. It was kick them out of here. Then it was bombing and shooting up, what they allege to be drug boats. But many have argued have literally just been fishermen, and now it's this. Like, the escalation has been so wild, and it has been undocumented. Um, it is hard to imagine that people who potentially sat on the sidelines and didn't have much to say about those first two steps would be that concerned. But for those that are concerned, I think that it is important that we share their stories. And I think it is also important for us to have conversations with our Venezuelan friends and neighbors, right? I know that there's been a lot of reports that Venezuelans, like I believe in Miami, have really been celebrating. But the question is this real liberation, right? Is it going from one dictator to another? Or what's happening? And will this dictator be worse? Like, I think that those are the questions that people aren't really living out in this moment. And again, as Americans, it's not so much about like whether or not you like their leader, right? Because let me tell you something, there's a lot of people that don't like Trump at home and abroad. I'm gonna just point that out. It's a lot of people, right? But in our democracy, this is not how we function, where we allow one individual to then just sink us into war. Like, that's not what we do. And that's essentially what it feels like he's done. Now, the briefings historically, as it relates to the boats, ain't been worth very much. So we will see. But I anticipate when we get back that there will be a bipartisan demand that we be briefed on what took place, because that has not happened. And again, we go back in on Tuesday, January 6th of all days. Okay. But I do think we need to talk to our Venezuelan friends here and abroad. And if you are aware of Venezuelan journalists, make sure you're amplifying their stories on social media if they're independent versus propaganda, because we got a lot of propaganda in the United States as well now. Another question. I'm concerned about the harm to innocent life and civilians. While we may have issues with the government, I'm deeply concerned about harm to private citizens and civilians. Yeah, we're not even getting reports about that part. We've only received reports of Americans that went in as our service members. But somebody correct me if I'm wrong, and hopefully my staff will catch it. At this point, we've not been given any information other than they were looking at a possible additional attack that would have been bigger, and that we know that the president and his wife allegedly are safe, but we do not know about the status of others and civilians. So hopefully, with some independent journalism, we will learn in the coming days. But I don't even think anybody asked about that during the press conference. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I may have missed that, but I don't think that anyone even asked I will applaud those journalists that were there at Mar-a-Lago because they kind of like piggybacked on each other. If you saw, they were continuously pressing, like, well, who is it that's going to run the country? Like, because he said, we're gonna run it. It's like, who is we? Like, who is we? And like they kept pressing and they were asking about whether or not troops were gonna be on the ground. And it seemed like they were um, potentially saying that like troops were going to be there, but more so just to look after the oil. That's kind of what I was left with. I don't know if there's been any further explanation of that, but that was kind of like the gist of what I was picking up from what he was saying, which again does nothing for those civilians or citizens or innocents that are in the country. What safeguards should be in place to prevent retaliation against protesters or opposition figures? I don't know. First of all, I don't know if this is from the perspective of here at home or abroad, because these should be concerns for both. Obviously, I just talked about how our service members may end up being on the ground to protect oil, it seems like. And so we've got to be concerned with the safety of our service members from those that may try to retaliate. But also at home, I remember when we had our other situation, I basically was like, if you're going to any large gathering, be very like clear of like your surroundings and just kind of be on high alert. I think that that is a good stance for us to have here in the coming days and weeks, is to just kind of be very cognizant of large gatherings of people in general, because I would imagine that if any retaliation would take place, it would be in order to really make a statement. So definitely just be very cognizant of where you're going and how much security exists. And from a federal government standpoint, I think it is important for us to at least emphasize that as we have some of our large gatherings, which we have a number of them that are about to come up, I won't name them, some of the biggest gatherings that we have, just making sure that the security around those are even tighter. And then I get into concerns about our intel, because again, not having as closer relationships with our allies, or them just not trusting our ability to safeguard intel, um, causes me concern for how much information we're actually getting from people that typically have been our friends. All right. Let's see. People are happy and relieved because of Maduro's harm. How should U.S. leaders acknowledge that pain while still prioritizing democracy and human rights? I think this is a really good question. Again, I started this off by acknowledging that that there are people. I mean, frankly, a lot of the allegations that are being waged against Maduro, there are people that are waging those same allegations against the current president. I just want to be clear about that. And, it is not, first of all, I think that what we have to do is make it plain that this president could care less about the Venezuelan people. That is like, that ain't got nothing to do with why he did this. And again, there are dictators and bad guys in a lot of countries. And so now are we saying that the United States is about to go into every single country and start nabbing all of their presidents? Like that's not a thing. And at the end of the day, Congress has to be involved. We don't live in a dictatorship, and he is doing things that look really a lot like a dictator, because going in, and he did this with the help of the Supreme Court, to be clear, going in and taking someone else's leader, regardless of how you feel about him. Like, I have no backup to give to Maduro. I do want to be clear. But going in, taking somebody's leader, no matter how you feel about them, and his wife, and completely dismantling their government, and then saying, I'm going to oversee all of your resources, that ain't about the people. So I think that what we need to do is, I don't think that people should be going and pretending that Maduro was like some amazing human. Like that ain't our job. Like our job isn't to cape for Maduro, but our job is to be clear about who we are in this country, and that this is how you end up with the Maduros of the world. This is what we don't stand for. So I think that we can't allow us to get into a stance of the ends justifying the means, basically. Um, let's see. Uh, okay. Oh Lord, they are really going on. Okay, sorry. Let me do a couple more, and then we will end this live so everybody can get back to their Saturday. How do we center the safety and self-determination of the Venezuelan people without repeating the mistakes of the past US regime change interventions? There is no rule of law in this country or respect for the Constitution. What can Congress do about it? I think that that is the important part, is that if this was the goal, then I think that we'd have an agenda and we potentially would um, not make the same mistakes that we've made. But like the agenda has nothing to do with like doing a regime change so that there could be actual self-determination of the Venezuelan people. This is an oil grab, period. Like this dude is like, oh yeah, the oil companies from the United States are coming in. And I think that that's what makes this a little bit more complicated, because that's not what, like, the reason he didn't come to Congress is because he wouldn't have got the authority. He wouldn't have got the authority to do this. He needed the flunkies that were standing up there with him. That's what he needed. And he needed a Supreme Court that would say, hey, you can't be prosecuted for anything here. Like, yeah, no, like just do whatever you want to, right? And he is taking full advantage of this bootleg um situation that the Supreme Court has made for us. So, this is about whether or not Congress actually finds a backbone. So again, I probably can count two people on the Republican side that potentially will sign on to get something done. I will also say that on January 31st, we will have yet our longest vacancy finally filled. It would have been almost a full year that Congressional District 18 in Houston has been left without representation. That is half of an entire term that they have not had representation. But as of January 31st, they are going to elect their next representative. And so we should be able to get that person to DC. So then we don't need 4 Republicans. We need 3 Republicans. So I know that we've probably got 2 on board to start to do something in the House, but the Senate is a problem. Again, your girl is running for the Senate for a reason, because a lot of our issues, even when we can finally get somewhere in the House, we can't get anything done on the Senate side. So I can't speak for, again, I feel like I can count on Rand Paul. And again, y'all can let me know, but I can probably Google right now, and Rand Paul is probably not with the shits. Because I do feel like there are people that really believe what the core of the Republican platform is. And then there are people that don't have a belief system whatsoever, and they just do whatever Trump tells them to do. Kind of like our current senator, who's just like, hey, let me just be in the building. And frankly, that doesn't work for our country. And this is why our democracy is truly crumbling before our eyes. All right. So, okay, this is a good question. November is only months away. What is the strategy to win back Congress so that actions like this invasion can be checked? So, again, obviously Trump is still doing his bidding with these state houses and state senates and governors' mansions to try to rig the system. Kudos to Indiana for saying fuck you. Kudos to California for saying we're going to fight back. Definitely kudos to the Trump justice who wrote the 160-page opinion denouncing what took place in Texas. And fuck you to the Supreme Court for what they did. Um, as well as, we'll see what happens in some other places. We are swinging seats no less than 10 points around the country since he has taken office. So what's happened is, I honestly think there are seats in Texas that are in play that typically would not have been in play because of the way that they drew the lines. So if there is a seat that went for Trump by 10 points or less, in my estimation, it is in play. And as they have played these crazy lines all over the country, North Carolina included, trying to give him yet another seat after North Carolina is the reason we don't control the House in the first place, I think that they're drawing those seats too tight. So I think that what's going to happen is they're going to be in for a rude awakening. I stand with Pelosi, as Speaker Emerita has stated over and over and over. She believes that the Democrats are going to take the House. I think so too. This can't just be a belief, though. We got to do the work. So we got to get out there. We got to talk to our friends. We got to talk to our neighbors. We got to explain to them why they personally may not have a job right now, why personally their wages may be stagnant, why personally they may not be able to afford health care, why personally their loved ones who were historically in, say, a nursing facility is now going to have to come and live with them because there's no funding that is available for them. They now are going to have to, have conversations with those people that are losing their small businesses, even those at the big businesses. We saw what happened with Tyson in Nebraska. We're going to have conversations with those small towns where these manufacturing locations are shutting down, or where they were supposed to open up and they're just not going to open. We're going to have to get very real about the fact that there are so many people that always want to say things like, I don't do politics. And as my sorority sister, the incomparable state representative Tony Rose always says, you may not do politics, but politics will do you. We're going to have these real conversations. And if you have a service member who is a loved one, an uncle, an auntie, a sister, a cousin, a mother, a father, we need to talk about the fact that our foreign relations and our relationships are all jacked up, is like putting them at risk. Right now, every single day that he is in office, these service members are being put at risk. Mind you, this is the same administration that decided that it wanted to try to threaten sitting members of the House and the Senate, and they decided they wanted to go after Mark Kelly specifically because they literally just wanted to recite what it is that service members are not supposed to do. This is like written. So like, I just like, I don't know how to convince people that some things are bigger than a political affiliation. And right now, if we can't convince people in this country that it is bigger than a political affiliation, because the last time I checked, this is not the party that is pro-life. We know that when they illegally cut off funding for USAID, that has cost hundreds of thousands of lives. We know that for the first time, at least that I've been in Congress, we had our Congressional Budget Office, also known as the CBO, trying to predict how many deaths were going to come as a result of the big ugly bill. We also know that we have seen constant reporting around the fact that women are losing their lives in record numbers because of their policies and what they push forward with this insane and terrible Supreme Court as it relates to reproductive access. So like, I just want to be clear. People are dying. Not to mention, we have a record number of deaths of people that have been in ICE custody. Record numbers for last year. Not to mention, when we're looking at our farmers and ranchers, we are experiencing record numbers of suicides by them right now, as they are also experiencing record numbers of bankruptcies. Listen, there is some bullshit for everybody. And so, like, to me, it's just time out for playing games. Like, this ain't about whether or not the next politician is going to be your bestie. This isn't about whether or not the next politician excites you, the most and gets you all jazzed. What this needs to be about is whether or not you believe this politician gives a damn as to whether or not you live, as to whether or not there is going to be a country where your children and your grandchildren can live and thrive. This isn't about finding the perfect person. This is about finding people that actually have courage to do what is right. And when I said people, like, I mean that. Like, I do not agree with Thomas Massey on a lot of things. I do not. Like, I don't want to put it out there that we do. But at the same time, this motherfucker got a backbone. Like, he stands for what he like believes in, and he doesn't fold no matter who you are. So like, I don't know. It's gonna take like doing more than kind of like, oh, I did my part and I went about it. Like, you need to find that candidate that like you're like, you know what, I believe in you. So I'm going to make sure that I go knock some doors. I'm gonna make sure I send some text messages, make some phone calls. And if I got a little extra $5, $10, I'm gonna send it off to you because granted, while I love to go and have happy hour, I'm gonna need to go ahead and sacrifice this happy hour for this because it's bigger than that. Like, it is so hard for me to understand how we got here. But more importantly, it is so hard for me to conceptualize if we can't save us. Like, that would be the most disappointing part. Now, let me tell you, currently, if we're looking at the trends of the elections, we are doing good. We are absolutely doing good. But we cannot afford to get comfortable whatsoever. And we have to keep up this energy. We have to remain focused and not be distracted by all of the bullshit that they will throw out there. They're going to do everything that they can to distract and divide because distraction and division is how we ended up in this mess. I'm going to need people to be laser focused. And if anybody starts to get distracted or divided over bullshit, like, I'm going to need you to remind them, whatever that distraction or division is, that like we are all in a sinking ship right now. And if we don't decide that we are going to start to collectively get this water out of the boat, then we all are going down, regardless of where you stand on, oh, well, I'm a Christian. I am too, boo. And my Bible don't say that none of this is right. Like, that's just what it is. I'm just saying. Like, so I don't want us to get caught up in that because this man knows nothing about the Bible anyway. So I don't even understand how Christian evangelicals decided that this was their guy. Like, I really don't. Okay, let me do two more. Let me find them real quick. Because I know y'all got better things y'all want to do. Now to make sure this, it's a good question, but I don't know the answer. Let's see. How did you understand while standing up to? Okay, this is a good one. Okay, these are a lot of great questions. Okay, so this is very good. This is very good. I'm gonna do this one. In moments like today, leadership isn't about outcomes; it's about guardrails. What guardrails are missing right now, and how would you fix them as a senator? This is such an excellent question for a million different reasons. All right, so number one, when we talk about a shift in power in the Senate, we know that the Senate only has 100 members. And so your power is next level from what it is in the House, where there's 435. We call it the upper chamber for a reason. And so when we are looking at flipping the Senate, it's always more difficult. Like, it's a difficult balance. And we have things such as the filibuster that may need to be challenged. Put that out there under certain circumstances. And I think that, if we can have filibuster carve outs for things such as our budget, I don't see how we can't have filibuster carve out for democracy in and of itself. So I have been a large proponent of kind of reminding people of how I got here in the first place. And for those of you that don't know, I was in the Texas State House and I was a freshman when I was there. And when I was in the House, the Republicans decided to attack voting rights. And as a civil rights lawyer, it didn't sit well with me, knowing that I was still only the 22nd, lucky number 22, the sorors will understand that, 22nd Black woman to ever swear into the Texas House. And my predecessor was actually one of two, because we had two Black women that swore in at the same time. And they actually swore in with Sarah Weddington in 1973. And the reason I bring up Sarah Weddington is because I'm not really sure how many people know that Texas was really a good state. We were doing good things for the country. Sarah Weddington was a young lawyer who had argued her first case in front of the Supreme Court, Roe v. Wade. So here it is. my congresswoman at the time, Eddie Bernice Johnson, swore in along with Symphonia Thompson, who we call Miss T, who is still serving over 50 years later in the Texas House. So here it is. She calls me up and tells me that I need to run, but this is after we had a very dramatic session. We broke quorum. For those of you who know anything about Texas politics, there is a state rep by the name of Trey Martinez Fisher. Trey Martinez Fisher has been like a mentor of mine since the day that I swore in. And most people don't know that the reason Trey and I were so close is because there is a judge in Dallas County, Judge Tillery. So Judge Dale Tillery is one of the best judges that I've ever had to appear in front of. And Judge Tillery became a bit of a mentor to me because Judge Tillery actually got his political career started in the state house. And as luck would have it, Trey Martinez Fisher was swearing into the Texas House. And Judge Tillery became his mentor too. So we shared this mentor. And as all of serendipity would work out, I actually ended up sitting my freshman year in Judge Tillery's desk. Of all the 150 desks, that's the desk that I ended up in. And the reason that I know is because there's a Bible in every desk in the Texas House, and the members sign the Bible. Hopefully I signed it. I think I signed it, but the members signed the Bible. I'm trying to remember now. But as I look back, it tells you like who all is sat in that desk. And so Judge Tillery has sat in the desk. So anyway, so Trey Martinez Fisher, when he came in as a young member, he actually was a part of the last quorum break that they had in the Texas House. And so for me, I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe they're doing this. There has to be something. And it was Trey Martinez Fisher who was giving me history. So this is why I have always been very deferential to senior members, because there's always like value in knowing like what is taking place and that kind of stuff. And I've always had senior members that have honestly poured into me. And so Trey was giving me the background. I was like, well, we need to do that again, right? And so myself, Gina Hinojosa, Trey, a number of other people, we like pulled together kind of this small coalition, like, yo, we need to try to break quorum. Because this is the only way that we can stop this and bring attention to what's taking place. Fast forward, that all took place, and most people came to know me because of our fight over voting rights. The reason that I say that this has to be an integral part of what the next senator from Texas decides to do is because we don't get any of our other freedoms. We don't get any of our representation. We get nothing if we don't say, you know what, we got to push forward and make sure that there is a carve out specifically for democracy and fortifying it, because it has been exploited under this administration. That starts with making sure that the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, as well as the Freedom to Vote Act, are passed. These are measures that Nancy Pelosi ushered through the House, and then they went nowhere in the Senate. We have to get them passed. So for all the states that are on edge, not knowing what the lines are going to be, and Trump is calling everybody, telling everybody to switch it up, change it up, that would not be happening if we had the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act passed. And I think that if you care about healthcare, if you care about where we stand on foreign affairs, if you care about jobs, if you care about the tariffs, if you care about the Epstein files, whatever it is that you care about, you can't get there unless you are allowed to select your representatives versus your representatives selecting their constituency. And the thing about things like a Senate race, it is the great equalizer. Like, this is your opportunity to make sure that everyone has an equal say in who is elected. Unlike a congressional district, you can chop and screw it and minimize voices, but every single voice, every single vote counts exactly the same by the time you go to a statewide. So for me, I think that what we've got to do is we've got to consider expanding the court. I've got legislation that I've signed on to. I'm a part of the task force, the Supreme Court task force. Hank Johnson out of Georgia, as well as Jamie Raskin, as well as Madeline Dean and others, we are part of this Supreme Court task force. And so looking at things like an actual ethics reform or an actual ethics being in place for the Supreme Court, that means that when they are actually conflicted out, that like we have a way of making sure that they are out instead of them just being like, oh, I don't feel like I have a conflict. I'm good. We need something stronger than that. And every other court has that except for the high court. We need so many more things out of ethics when it comes to Supreme Court, but we also have to make sure that we are potentially expanding the court. And another bill that we filed is term limits. The term limits would be 18 years on each of the justices. This ensures that we actually have turnover of the Supreme Court instead of doing things like what Trump did or what McConnell did, where he was holding out spaces. So I just feel like there are certain spots on the Supreme Court that were illegitimately gotten for sure. So I think if we're going to shore up our democracy, we have to first start by shoring up the checks and balances. And so that starts with the Supreme Court, as well as it is only the U.S. Senate that actually has oversight over the Supreme Court. So they can bring them in. And just like you've seen me do my oversight of everybody else, it is only the Senate that has this type of oversight over the Supreme Court to be able to bring them in and to get them to answer questions. And finally, as we are building out these benches, we don't need no more Eileen Cannons, okay, and others that are getting lifetime appointments. So having someone who has the legal background, who has actually practiced law, both in state and federal courts, who knows the questions to ask as we are confirming people to lifetime appointments if we don't go ahead and invoke some sort of term limits. I think it's really important that we have somebody, because we running across some real bad judges like all over, and they're just sitting there, and they're sitting there for life, and truly changing the face of, you know, how we are even interpreting the laws that we are enacting when we finally get something enacted. The final point that I'll make, and then I'm gonna go, because I feel like a Baptist preacher who's been closing for like 50 times, even though I didn't pass around the collection plate. But please, if you feel, you know, inspired, definitely go jasmineforus.com and donate. My team will be so happy that I said that. You know, I think that it is our time. It is our time to flex our power. I don't know how many more opportunities we are going to have to be able to flex our power if we don't start to do it now. And I want you to know that any frustration you feel with current elected officials, whether they are Democrats or Republicans, any frustration that you feel with these very systems that obviously are broken, I share your frustration. You see it play out usually in committee. But I am so scared for our country, and I'm so frustrated that this is where we are. And as someone who has traveled the world on behalf of the United States and spoken to foreign leaders and spoken to foreign assemblies and all the things, I am so very concerned about what this means, not only for our present state, but like going forward. And the quicker and earlier that we can just get people that want to do right, people that aren't so convinced that they need to, you know, shuck and jive for a president who is a lame duck president. I mean, the quicker that people are reminded, and it's sad because you've got all these people on the Republican side that instead of just doing right, they're like, forget it, I'm out. I'm just gonna retire. And that's not courage. That's not patriotic. Like, we have to do what's right. So anyway, I just want to say God bless. Happy New Year. I am expecting greater for us, because from the No Kings protest to November 4th results to special elections, even in Deep South, whether we're talking about Miami or whether we're talking about Tennessee or whether we're talking about Georgia or Mississippi, y'all are showing up. And I know you're tired, but just imagine that you're not just doing it for you. You're doing it for people that you've never met. You're fighting for future generations to make sure that they are in a better world than you came into. And right now, a lot of generations are wondering if that is going to be true. So it's up to us. So God bless you. Have a great Saturday and stay in this fight. And definitely check in with us next week as we go back in, as we will most likely be engaged in a lot of conversations around Venezuela. And they think we not going to talk about Epstein, but we ain't letting that one go either.